Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to another episode of I Can Do. What's up? I hope and pray all is well with you. I hope you are having a fantastic week. Every day, it truly is a vacation. That's a mindset we should have. Every day is another opportunity to get better. Tomorrow is not promised, and so today is what we make of it. I hope that you will be thinking about how you can improve every day, spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally, so that we can continue to be the best that we can be, so that we can give glory to God and help others and to really enjoy every day. I can do, so can you. Thank you for your support. I want to share with you a conversation that I had recently. Right before I was getting ready to work out at the gym where I work out, I've been going back to the gym. I have weights in my garage, but the gym has heavier weights. That's what I'm looking for at this moment. So I am back to doing lifting 4 days a week, trying to do my cardio twice a week. My cardio is a HIIT kind of training, high intensity interval training, where I'm on the treadmill for 35 minutes, walking for a couple of minutes, jogging for 2 minutes, and then sprinting. But that doesn't really have anything to do with our podcast. Let me get back to what I was going to tell you. I was at the gym recently and I talked to one of the employees. We've talked a couple of times and she has shared with me some things that are taking place in her life. She's in school. She's got a lot of things on her plate. So today we had another conversation and it was a really great conversation. It turned into a coaching moment. I like to coach. I like to encourage. I like to provide some additional perspective. So she had shared some things that were taking place in her life. I gave her an analogy or an example or an exercise, I guess you could say, that she could do. And I like it when it comes to trying to figure out what we might need to change in our lives. There are so many things that we have to juggle with respect to our lives on a day-to-day basis. Careers, health, finances, family, fun, faith, you name it, right? Food, all these things. So I told her, I want you to imagine, and you can do this exercise for yourself as well. I want you to imagine a stove. Most stoves have 4 places where you can put a pan or some kind of pot where you can do some kind of cooking. So imagine for a moment your life is like a stove. So you only have a certain amount of places that you can cook, that you can have on that stove at any given time. What's going to be on your stove? That's what we're talking about here today. What are we cooking in our lives? What I mean by that is, what are we cooking? What are we making? What is taking our time? What's on our stovetop? Well, we have to figure out if there are only 4 spots, then we're going to have to prioritize and decide what's going to make it on the stove. Well, that gets really challenging because we may have 6, 7, 8, 9 pots that we want cooking all at the same time, but there's not going to be enough room. There's not going to be enough heat. There's not going to be enough energy. So something will have to be taken off the stove, at least for a period of time. Something will have to be taken off the stove. We cannot have 9 or 10 pots or dishes all cooking at the same time. Now, maybe, and I am no expert when it comes to restaurants and how many places that they can put pots and pans while cooking on a stovetop, but what we have in our home, we got 4 spots. We got 4 burners. I guess that's what they're called. So there can only be so many things taking place or cooking at one particular time. Does that make sense? So I want you to ask yourself, and this is a great coaching tool for yourself. What's on your stovetop? What are you cooking? What is most important that's going to get this energy and passion and zeal from you in your life? Well, I know for me and my family, what has to be there has to be our faith in Jesus Christ. That has to be like on the biggest burner, right? And nothing else can replace that thing right there. Our faith has to be there. So now we're left to only a couple of more spots. Well, I know family has to be there as well. So now we only have a couple of more spots. We only have 2 more spots left. So this is the idea of what is going to get the most of our energy in our lives. Now, I do understand that sometimes we may have to swap some things. Sometimes we may have to turn the heat down or turn the heat up a little bit more, depending on what that thing may be. But the core values, foundational things, they have to remain. So how do we navigate this? How do we decide what's going to be on the stove? How long it should be on the stove? How do we replace a particular pot for another one? Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Now I want to give you a word from our sponsor. Today's show is sponsored by the Still Waters Counseling with Julie Adams. You need a counselor with life experience who cares for you. That person is certainly Julie Adams. Sometimes it helps to talk, to unload hurts with those who listen with empathy while sharing the same biblical moral frame of reference. It also helps to receive constructive suggestions that move toward solutions in a more positive journey. Life is hard, and some days it gets harder. You do not have to go on this journey alone. If you're in need, please reach out to Julie Adams with the Still Waters. That is STILL waterslife.com. stillwaterslife.com to set up an appointment. All right, so let's get back to what we're talking about here with respect to what's on our stove. What are we cooking? How do we decide what's going to make the stove? What's going to be given energy and passion and fire so that we can have the things and do the things that we want? Number one, I recommend that you find out, talk to your family, talk to your spouse, and really find out what is it that's a non-negotiable. What is it that absolutely has to be there no matter what? For me, it's my faith. It is our faith in God and Jesus Christ. Joshua, in the book of Joshua in the Old Testament, Joshua said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." So I know that's going to take up one of those places right there. And the reality is it has an impact on everything else that will be on that stove for us. So you may fall into the same category as well. So for us, what that will look like, we're going to give a lot of energy and time to our faith. That will include worship services, hospitality, connecting, spending time with other brethren, studying the scriptures, praying together, opportunities that we just already know that we're not going to say no to these. We're not going to even have to discuss whether or not we're going to be a part of them. It's just what we're going to do. So that makes it easy for us, and it may make that easy for you as well. Number two, when you think about what's going to be on your stove, I want to give you something. I want to give you a suggestion here. Go back to 2020. I said it. Go back to 2020. I know everybody said, let's just get out of this year. We can't wait for this year to be done. Let's just turn the calendar, turn the page to January 1st, 2021. Well, you know what? A lot of the challenges came in January 1st and February 1st and March 1st. We still are having challenges, but I want you to think about 2020, especially with the quarantine. I know a lot of people were hurting and struggling. Sadly, many have lost their lives and many families have been impacted. So I'm not trying to take this lightly by any stretch of the imagination. I do want you to consider those early moments when we were all trying to figure things out, when we were quarantined, when our lives suddenly stopped, so to speak. What then was on your stovetop? See, that may give you a clue of what really needs to be there. So again, for us, family is going to be there. So many people enjoyed the time at home where there was nothing else to do. And I know there was a lot of bad things that actually happened in many homes, unfortunately, where a lot of just horrific things took place. And that's an indication as well of some issues and challenges that people have in their homes. But for many, being able to be quarantined and be at home and not driving 2 hours round trip to work every day, that was a huge blessing. So that will give you some indication about what happened in 2020. What were the positives? What did you see that changed in your schedule that had been really, really neglected? Maybe that was your faith. Maybe that was your family. Maybe that was your fitness. Maybe it was just cooking at home instead of ordering out. You know what? Maybe it was finances as well. Tons of people saved so much money because they just weren't going out and spending it at restaurants and entertainment. And so reflect on 2020 to give you some insight of what needs to be on your stove today. Does that make sense? So number one, what is it that is an absolute, you will not negotiate on this? Is it faith? Is it your family? Well, that already makes it so much easier. And I do think there are some things that will fall into the family category, like finances, because that's a part of family. Time, all of those things are components of the family. So if you have one spot left on your stove, a couple of spots, now you have to figure out, okay, what is most important? What is it that I can realistically give with respect to energy? So many times when we look at our calendars, we don't think about the energy cost. So we look at our calendar and we say, oh, Friday is open, Saturday is open. Sure, we will go to this place. Let's book this. Let's have somebody over. Well, that's okay, but you also have to consider the energy cost. What I mean by that is, let's say you had something Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night. Well, now you're potentially going to have something 4 nights out of the week, or maybe even 5. That takes a lot of energy, physical, mental, emotional energy. So even as you're thinking about what's going to be on your stovetop, it's not just looking at whether or not you have an empty space or time on your calendar, but you also have to look at the cost from an energy standpoint. Are you going to be up to hosting 5 families, or going out to that dinner, or going to that game? When someone invites you just because you have some free time on your calendar, it could be that maybe something that goes on your stove is 8 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep. So what's going to be on your stove, you have to figure out, what is it that I'm not going to compromise on? What is it that I need? What is it that I may be a little bit deficient in that needs some more attention from me? Now, something else to think about as well, as you think about your stovetop, some things will be replaced, just like cooking, right? Thanksgiving is coming up. You cook a meal, you finish the dish, you got the sweet potatoes. I don't think those aren't made on the stove. But other dishes that are made on the stove, eventually they're done. And you take them off and you wait for them to cool down a little bit, and you can put something else on. Well, you can do that as well with this example of our lives. Sometimes something may need a little bit more attention and focus. And this idea of having everything perfectly balanced, work-life balance, everything is perfectly balanced, I don't really know if that's even feasible. Sometimes you will have to spend more time in work or at work. Sometimes you will have to pay more attention, more emphasis, more focus on family matters. So now you have to figure out, okay, am I giving enough time for X or for Y or whatever it may be? And if you are, and if things are going really, really smoothly, well, then maybe you can replace that particular pan with another one and put it on the stovetop. My point is, what are we cooking? What are we making in our lives? The time that we have, what are we producing? Followers on social media, well, you can make some money off of that. Is that really going to be the main emphasis that we really want to go after long term? Well, if that's our job, maybe we want to do that a little bit more, but there are some bigger things out there. Entertainment, there's always new movies, there's always something else, there's always a new restaurant that's opening. Maybe there's something else that we need to be giving attention to. Maybe it is our faith. Maybe it is our marriage. Do we see dates on the stovetop? Are we going out on dates with our spouse? Are we taking vacations with our families? Or are we being forced by our bosses or jobs or ultimatums by our spouses? We have to get out of here for a few days. Well, now there's something that's off. So this is a great way to see maybe you've been emphasizing on something too much. Now, I don't think that's with respect to family or faith, but maybe some of these other things that could be on your stove. Maybe you need to make some adjustments. Maybe the heat needs to be turned up more for some of these. We're cooking something. We are making something. And it can be really, really good, or it can turn into a nasty disaster. The choice is ours. So look at the choices that you have, the options that you have. What's most important? What can you put on the stove? What needs to be put there? What needs to remain there? What can be cooked and then removed and something else can be put on? It's a simple way of figuring out, I can't have everything on there all at the same time. Something will have to give. What is that going to be? It's your stove, not mine. It's your life, not mine. It's your family, not mine. But I still have to make all of these decisions for myself. Let's be wise. Let's cook something great. Let's evaluate what's on our stove. I hope this helps. This is a simple tool that you can use to make some changes, important changes potentially in your life. And if you like this, please come back for more. And I'm going to be sharing some different tips and strategies that we all can use in our day-to-day lives. I have a new YouTube page, I Can Do with Benjamin Lee. Love for you to go over to that YouTube page, subscribe, turn on the notification button. Please share it as well. Sharing is caring. I have videos there that will help you with personal development, physical health, spiritual growth. I'm going to be adding new content on a weekly basis. And I have the podcast. And so you can find me on social media, website as well, benjaminlee.blog. Please leave me a review and rating on this podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. And remember, I can do, so can you. Take care, and God bless. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you are in the need or looking for more motivation in your life, feel free to check out my website, benjaminlee.blog, where you can find hundreds of encouraging, motivational blog posts on a variety of subjects. You can find all of my books, which can also be found on Amazon.com, and other podcast interviews with a variety of people. I hope this helps. Please leave me a rating and a review. I can do, and so can you. Take care, and God bless.